I used to carry a 9mm all the time. A little bit of failure is what makes you stronger. Recycle your pain. You can't just say, okay, let's pull up my bootstraps and let's do this. I wanted more. I wanted more. I needed more. I needed to be successful for myself. Fear is manifested in our minds. Binsack, thank you for joining me. Tonight, I'm going to be discussing think before you speak, controlling our emotions. Words are very powerful. Words can make you or break you in business or in relationships. Words can take passion and turn it into anger, like that. Words between countries can take peace and turn it into war, like that. Tonight, I'm going to be focusing on communications between two people in relationships. Because I'm a person who, when I find out something about myself, or I see something about myself, or something's pointed out to me, I want to fix it. I want to understand it. I want to know what the problem is and where it stems from and how to control it. And over some recent events, and I look back at my past relationships, and I've seen it too, I had started to become angry. And I'm not an angry person. I don't believe in violence. I'm not a violent person. But I became angry and bitter and mad during conversations with people I'd been in relationships when we were communicating, or vice versa, or they became very mad and bitter, and it created serious problems. As I said, especially when you have two passionate people together, two really passionate people, their signs might be, what they may be. And I'm just passionate in everything I do. So of course then, communicating is going to be in a passionate way as well. And it really and I look back and I'm like, wow, after spending the past week realizing I can communicate in business and no problem. And in business, it's like a contract, So I'm going to be discussing dealing with emotional intimacy tonight. Now, emotions are key to everything. And emotions shouldn't be confused with feelings, so to speak. Emotions are anger, sadness, joy, disappointment, worry, as I said, sadness. They are truly the bloodline to an intimate relationship. Emotions are. Emotions are the bloodline to everything. And the key with emotions, if we look at them as what they are, the bloodline, if you take a couple who, when they first meet, everything is great, they talk all the time, the channels of communication are open, and then over time, and to point this out, with emotions comes the passion, and with the passion comes the sexual intimacy. If you're lacking the emotions and you're not open to them, then the intimacy is going to die. And the communications will break down, and you will, like as I said, be left with nothing. And you'll be wondering, wow, how did this get here? You're angry at each other. You can't understand. You can't even talk about anything. One person says something, it triggers another and somebody else. You have to, and I'm looking because I have so much written down. I've talked to a couple therapists about this, before I did the show, and a lot of research I've done. So again, you don't want to confuse a feeling, so to speak, with an emotion. There's something that's the same, but a statement. It's like asking somebody, well, what's wrong with him? Why did he make you mad? Well, he shouldn't have done that to me. He shouldn't have done what? That's not. Tell me what the problem is. What is the What's the emotion? Emotions are anger, as I said, sadness, concern, disappointment, joy, pleasure. These are all emotions, and they're all good. And they are truly the bloodline, as I said. If you don't have the channels opened to receive the emotions, they break down. So let's look at it this way. If the emotions are the bloodline, blood flows through an artery. And when you're in the beginning of a relationship, the blood is flowing fast and fast and fast and fast, and you're communicating and you're sexually intimate and you're passionate and everything is a desire and it's all there. But slowly, as you go along, somebody says something or somebody does something, makes the other one angry or upset, or they disagree. That sort of adds like a little bit of, and they don't agree on it, and it some people don't want to discuss it, and I'll get into that a little later, but it sort of clogs this artery, and it will clog it up so that the blood is not flowing anymore. And then slowly you see the sexual intimacy go down, you see the passion go down, everything breaks down. There's no more flow, there's no more communication, there's no more flow, and you have a serious problem. You have to prevent the artery from getting clogged. Now, that's not to say, some people are not meant to be together. But with our society, communication has become laxed. In other words, yes, we can communicate like this or on a computer, not this. And I believe that's a very big part. More fights are started, I believe, and disagreements and arguments are started over messenger or texting because people are taken out of context. So it even makes it worse when there's a breakdown. So let's begin with not mixing up emotions and thoughts. Thoughts about somebody are not emotions. Emotions are your true feelings of how you feel. And one of the key things, and it's something I learned the hard way, everybody wants to be heard. Everybody has a right to be heard. And when someone is expressing an emotion and communicating that to you, never tell them that they shouldn't feel that way. Never tell them that they shouldn't feel that way, because emotions are facts. You will never change someone's emotions, meaning you'll never change how a person is feeling, because it is it's true. You can't tell somebody you shouldn't be angry, you shouldn't be mad, you shouldn't be happy, you shouldn't be crying, you shouldn't be that. How do you tell somebody that they shouldn't be feeling something? If that's what they feel, that's what they feel. You can't tell them not to feel that. And this is what happens in relationships. One person says, well, you shouldn't feel that way because of this, this, or this, or you shouldn't feel that way because of this, this, and this. And what it does is it represses the other person from wanting to express themselves. They shut down and they become angry. They may not express that, but they shut down. Well, he's just or he or she is just shutting down what I have to say. It says I shouldn't be angry when in fact I am angry. Or I shouldn't be sad, but I am sad. You should never, ever, excuse me, you should never, ever tell that to anyone. Emotions are facts. In other words, and I look at it, say facts because they're real. You're never going to change them. The person will, you can't debate someone's emotions. You just can't. That's like saying, I shouldn't be sad because, someone died. Well, don't worry about it. You'll get over it. Don't be sad about it. People say it all the time. Don't be sad about it. Don't be sad. And what they're doing is they're actually putting down the other person for their emotions. And psychologically, that person then reverts and closes up to where they don't want to open up and there's another clog in that artery. They don't want to then in the future express how they feel. And without emotional intimacy, the sexual intimacy will go away slowly. As the artery gets clogged, as will the sexual intimacy die as well. Because there's no communication. It's a complete breakdown of the relationship. Now there's positive and negative emotions. In other words, if you can't express the negative, you won't be able to express the positive. So when two people are talking and the one doesn't want to hear something negative from the other one, and a negative emotion like I'm mad at you, or I'm angry at you. All emotions are normal and okay, even anger. Anger's okay. It's how you express it that could be wrong. It's like saying I'll give you an example. If I told my son not to not use that remote control to change a channel, use the other one, and he got mad and he threw the remote control, that's the wrong way to express his anger. Does he have the right to be angry? Yes. Should he throw the remote? No. It's all in the way how we express our emotions that is key. Some people, and like myself, have triggers in communication. In other words, if you love someone and they say something to you that you don't like to hear, or maybe it hurts you, or it could trigger another event that's happened to us in our past. It could be a childhood, it could be a high school relationship, it could be a prior, adult relationship, prior marriage, it could be anything. There are triggers that, here we go back to this artery in life, the blood flow of communication and emotions. If you don't handle and express and deal with these past pains and issues, they fill in this artery and they get stuck back here in your head, and you think, I'm not going to have to deal with that anymore. And a lot of people do that. A lot of people avoid conflict, and that's key. There's a key point here. You'll see couples who, we never argue. And from the outside they look like they have the perfect marriage or the perfect relationship and the perfect home. We're not cloned. There's no such thing. We're not clones of each other. You have to have some type of emotion and disagreement in a relationship. That's part of making it the emotional intimacy that it is. If you don't have that, then one person is repressing, or then eventually both people are repressing, and they're just doing anything they can to avoid a conflict and go along in their little way. And we can say that that's fake. And that's how psychologists say it as well. It's just because they're both so closed up that there's nothing there. And usually in those relationships, there's hardly any sexual intimacy either. Very rarely. So how you express your emotions could be either negative or positive, as I said. We don't want to express them with throwing a fit or yelling or screaming or getting so frustrated with the other. And other parties sometimes pull on that, and they'll antagonize it if they know your buttons. So you're getting involved in this whole thing, and you're like, people get to know each other's buttons, and there goes this artery. It's getting clogged and clogged and clogged and clogged and clogged, and then you have massive explosions. Sometimes, as I said, you don't have the explosion. You just have two people walk away. Okay. It's like someone debating. Here you go. You go to your wife or your husband or somebody, your boyfriend, girlfriend. How about we go to Hawaii? The wife says, and the husband says, nah. How about we go to Florida? And the wife goes, no, I really, really want to go to Hawaii. No, we can't afford it. We're going to go to Florida. Now, and I'm going to get into this in a little bit, but you see what happens here. You're starting a war here instead of constructively discussing this. And then the emotions start to come out. And we have to understand how to communicate properly, or we go nowhere. Communication is key, or it will make or break a relationship. And now if one party doesn't want to be a communicator or learn how to communicate better, and the other one does, then you have nothing anyway. There's no, it has to be a give and take where communication is key to both parties so that you can maintain the emotional intimacy between two people. So when someone tells you, or when someone says to us, I'm really sad, or I'll do it this way, I'm really mad at you because, you were talking to the other woman and you were flirting with her while I was present. That really, really bothers me. I'm very upset about that. If you don't give them validity to what they're saying and say, and listen and say, you know what, you're okay. I hear what you're saying. You're angry because I was flirting with another woman, and you have to validate them. You shouldn't say to them, you shouldn't feel that way. I was doing nothing. That's who I am. That's just the way I am. I flirt, and there's nothing to it. You just repressed, you just destroyed their trust to even tell you how they feel. And then they're going to get angrier. You just repressed somebody saying that to you. They're going to repress it to say, well, there's another clog. Why should I tell him that? He's out there flirting. It doesn't matter to me. I'm angry. I'm mad. And then she's going to get angrier, or he's going to get angrier. And then you have complete explosion. A complete breakdown. And then, really, did you really want to be intimate with that person? Then after, the people call it makeup sex, right? How long does that last? You're right back to the bad communication and the fight down the road. Or it'll go nice and smooth for a little bit, and then pow! Because things are repressed, and then it comes back down, and it goes straight again. You must give validity to all emotions. Especially when the other party shares with you a repressed emotion. We'll just say, like me, I was abused as a child, and if I share that with someone and they, oh, you don't have to worry about it, blah, blah, blah. You have to validate the other person's emotions, especially to a repressed emotion that they have. And it could be because, they could have been raped, or they could have been in, like I said, a bad high school relationship, and they got dumped and they lost their love, the love of their life. It could be anything, and these are repressed emotions. And that's why I preach on shows that we have to deal with our past emotional traumas so that they don't show their ugly head. And at times in communication, there'll be triggers and they bring them out. And where they've been stuck in this flow, and the emotional delivery is just, it's explosive. It's very hard to be in love with someone who, actually near impossible to be in love with someone who doesn't show emotions. It's very hard, or can't listen to the other person's emotions and feelings. If you're upset about something, you should be able to discuss it with your partner and not have the other one, and the other one should validate that. They should validate that. Okay, you feel this way, why? And you put out the whys, and you put out. Otherwise, every time you knock them down or tell them that, you shouldn't feel that way, that's wrong to feel that way, you'll get over it, or this, that, you're knocking them down. You're knocking them down bad. Like, never tell someone, it's like passing judgment on their feelings in a conversation. So you're communicating with someone and they, never tell somebody like, oh, let's just say, you're overreacting. You're overreacting. It wasn't that, here's an example. Husband comes home, wife's at home, comes home, he's 10 minutes late for dinner. Wife goes, where were you? Starts yelling, where were you? Why are you late? Da, 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 da. Now the husband can turn around and become very nasty and say, you don't have a reason to be angry. It's only 10 minutes. Who cares about 10 minutes? What do I care about 10 minutes? You have no reason to be angry. You have no reason to feel that way. Or he could say, well, I was stuck in traffic. I apologize. And is there something that happened to you today that you're so angry right now at me? And then the wife turn around and start to say something. Well, I talked to my sister and she had a problem with something. And you see, or you could have the explosion. It's all in the way the words are expressed, number one. And number two, whether they're validated or not. Whether you're validating someone else's feelings and emotions. You cannot not validate someone's emotions. You can't say that they can't feel that way. Because everybody has a right to feel the way that they want to feel, or why they feel. The reason we all feel different emotions for different reasons. And that's why cleaning up your past with issues is very important to communication in future relationships. Emotions they give us power. Think about it. Emotions give us power and strength. So the bad emotions are going to pull away from that. The bad emotions are going to be, if they're not validated and they're not understood, and there's a huge communication breakdown, their words, as I stated, opened this show with, they're very powerful. You can make or break someone. It's like calling a woman because she looked at another man. Oh, you looked at another man, you're doing that, you're a whore. Really? Think about that, because the person is upset or mad, they threw some words out there and emotions because they're angry, because they thought they believed that their wife was or girlfriend or whatever was looking at something. The word whore to a woman who isn't a whore, or even if they are one, okay, but that's not for me to judge. My point being is that for that word whore to a woman who's especially not a whore and takes pride in herself and in her body and her feelings and her, in who she is tremendous. It's huge. Huge. And if you don't resolve that after you're saying that to the other party, you have a massive clog, because she's going to remember you said that. She's going to remember you say that, and as things start to flow, as you try to flow again, that's still going to be over here. And the next time you do another one, it's going to clog, and the communication barrier is going to break down, the emotional barrier is going to break down, and you have one. And every time it breaks down, the sexual intimacy drops off. That's why you see relationships in the beginning, the first 6 to 8, 12 months, they're great. Sex is great, communication is great, but each time something happens, and we're repressing the other's emotions, and we're not understanding and validating them, and communicating and then working them out and coming to some agreement, and apologizing, and then forgiving, you clog. And then pow. Effective verbal communication. Words, as I just said, are super powerful. So, they're the cornerstone of any relationship. They are effective verbal intimacy is the cornerstone to your relationship. And I was like, I'm thinking to myself, I'm getting upset, I'm getting mad, and I'm getting defensive, and I'm going, and I've had this problem, and I couldn't figure out, why. Not with everybody, just, certain point. When there's a lot of passion and love in a relationship, there's lots of emotions. Lots of emotions. Repressed, current, doesn't matter. And then you have the repressions of the fear of getting hurt in that passionate relationship. And a lot of people have, I shouldn't say everybody, a lot of people have the fear of getting hurt. They don't want to be hurt again. The fears are there. And the fears are manifested in our mind, but they're still there. They're in that artery, which is stuffed in the back of our head. So you then come to the point in a relationship where some people have that fear of, if I tell you everything about me, maybe you won't like me. So I'm going to keep that to myself. I'm not going to open up to you, and I'm not going to tell you these things because I have a fear that you will not like me for me. And or that you'll leave me if I tell you I did something wrong. It's huge fear. So what happens is if the other person feels that way because other times in the past when they have expressed something, it was not validated, that fear comes to where I'm afraid you're going to reject me. You're not going to want me. If I tell you, everything about me, you may not like me, you'll leave me, go through all these things. When in fact, you'd want the other person to talk about their past and to be able to feel comfortable and safe to tell you how they feel without having it later either thrown back in their face or without them being judged. And I found myself not effectively communicating at all in many circumstances, and it was because of past repressed issues, anger, pain, hurt, sadness, fear. And then we lash out, and then World War III begins. And if you don't have the World War III, or you don't have at least some part of an argument of lashing out, there's something wrong, then both parties are repressing feelings, emotions. Both parties are not communicating. And they're just going along their merry life. As I said, it looks great to everybody on the outside. There's hardly any sexual intimacy. And that they're all good with that. But in reality, it's not. They're like zombies. And they're just there because they can't communicate. There's no emotional intimacy. It's dead. And some people, as I said, you can't take a person who doesn't want to communicate or learn how to communicate better or to be open with their feelings and force them to do that. And you can't be intimate then with them and create something or make something better or keep that flow going so you have the passion, the sexual intimacy, and the good emotions. It's normal. Emotions are normal. They're real. They're there. If you don't have emotions or you're not expressing them to your partner, there's something wrong. And then if you are expressing them and the one partner is not validating them and listening to them and taking them in, you have a problem. And then slowly, you're, like I said, from the beginning of the relationship, it's great, and then slowly it all goes down, 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 and then the years go by, you have children, and it just, everything, I'm just using an example, but this is how it goes. And men, it basically is this. You have to be vulnerable. Here's the key. If you're not vulnerable, that's the open artery. And vulnerability means to accept the all emotions on both sides. You're vulnerable. You're open to accept them. You're there. You're in it. You have to be vulnerable. Men were raised not to be vulnerable, back in the 40s and 50s, and now it's a little better in the past 20 years, but women were the vulnerable ones. Men were not to be the vulnerable ones. Men were supposed to be the strong one. Don't show any feelings. You can't cry. You can't be this. You can't be that. You can't do any of that. Repress those emotions. Where women were, have permission to be emotional. They're supposed to be, the emotional one. But then when a woman expresses anger, she's considered a bitch. When in fact, she's not. If a woman's angry, she has a right to be. Whatever she's angry about, you can't take that emotion away from them. Or a man, it doesn't matter. You cannot say that the person's emotions, they shouldn't be feeling them. And I made that mistake. Many times in my life, I've made that mistake. You shouldn't feel it because I'm thinking, well, in my situation, meaning me, if I was in that situation, I wouldn't feel that way. Guess what? I'm not them. And they're not me. And we have a right to those emotions. A serious right to them. Women were taught with the vulnerability that they were to please their husband, please their kids, please everybody around them, please their parents, and everything was great. That's the vulnerability. Whereas, and in return, the women do this. They love their husband or their mate. They love their children. Please their parents, please their children. Do this, do that, do this, do this, do this. And in return, that they would be loved and taken care of. That was the MO. And it is still the MO in a lot of cases. And this is what society has drilled in. When in fact, it's not the case at all. And if you look at the studies, and I went through this whole week, I spent a lot of hours on this because I had to get to the bottom of this, why I wasn't communicating well, yet in business I can communicate great. And with friends I can, and things that I'm not that passionate about, super passionate about, or there's not super love involved. I couldn't understand why when it came to that at times, not in all cases, but in times, there were things, especially when you have two passionate people together. Oh my God. That's a lot of energy. It's a lot of emotions. Being assertive is also key. You want to be assertive with your emotions. You want to tell the other person what your emotions are, and they should accept them and listen to them. They don't have to agree, but they should listen to them and not validate them. Okay, you are mad. You have a right to be mad if you're feeling that way. We can't tell someone we don't have a right to have an emotion. We can't do it. It's insane. You can't do that. So, now I'm going to talk about perception of reality. Okay, perception of reality, cognitive perception of reality is what I've just been sort of saying is that we look at someone else's emotions and say, what we perceive to be real and not real. No, you shouldn't be mad. You shouldn't be sad. You shouldn't, How we perceive something, how someone perceives something is always true for them, not the other part. And we have a right to perceive, our perception is what it is. The key is this. You have to remember when someone's expressing their emotions to you, that's their reality, not yours. And it's called cognitive perception of reality. Now, meaning we have to accept that that's their reality. And it could be in madness. We'll just think of somebody who's got serious psychiatric issues, and if we'll say a schizophrenic, and they believe, you know, well, you know, oh my God, they're crying. This is bad. This is bad. I'm going to die. I'm going to do this. If you tell a schizophrenic that that's not true, watch what happens. Watch what happens. They'll go insane. Madness will strike. So think about it. In a relationship, in a communication process, somebody tells you that they're mad at you, or they're sad, or they're upset, and you say, no, you're not. You shouldn't be that way. You don't feel that way. Think about what that does to that person. Think about what it does to them. It makes them feel like, really? I'm not supposed to feel that way? And this is what happens. This bad behavioral pattern keeps building and building and building. And you'll watch relationships and marriages just disintegrate. And it's easy now. We'll go meet someone else. It's easy. You know, like it's so easy, you know, to go meet someone else. Now it's different if you have no intimacy. In other words, if you're not in love with the person you're with. I mean, really in love with the person you're with. And you'll know. I'm going to tell you what. You don't have any arguments. You don't have it. Like I said, we're not clones. We're not the same. It's impossible. And I've double-checked this with psychiatrists and therapists, and it's true. We're not clones. We all have emotions, and if we don't express those emotions and everything's just smooth and peachy always, there's something wrong there. There's something missing. And most of the time, it's the true intimate love. It's just two people in a civil union saying, okay, let's go happily along our way, and da-da-da-da. And just be simple with that. Yet the emotions are all repressed, and they just clog, and the arteries like this. And they'll never get open again. I mean, in very rare cases. Real love is passionate. Now, when everybody says the word passionate is sexual, but sexual intimacy comes with that. If you have a communications breakdown, then the sexual intimacy goes right with it. Communication is the key. Emotions are the key. Accepting and validating each other's emotions are the key. Here's the other part. When people express their emotions, especially their deepest ones, and I started a little bit before about repressed ones, they feel very vulnerable. They become vulnerable and raw and open. So if someone tells you something very deep to them, and you don't validate it, and you don't accept it, or you turn around and throw it back at them in a fight down the road, you've just destroyed every bit of communication, and that person's become repressed instantly. You just repressed them from ever opening up or talking to you again, and for a while until they cool down, until they try to trust you again. But each time we do that, it closes. It was once flowing and beautiful and passionate, is now just keeps closing. Because the other person could be getting defensive, and here's a very, very important part of this. When we are hurt, or we feel hurt or pain, we like to lash and throw it back on the other person. So we use what we know that will hurt them and throw it against them. We wrongfully use. I'm sorry, if we do that, we wrongfully do that. When they opened up and trusted us to tell us their deepest emotions, their deepest feelings, and now we just hurl it back at them in a fight because we want to feel better. They hurt us, so let's hurt them. No, let's not hurt them. Just because they hurt us, or there's a communication breakdown, or their emotions that they may be angry at us at a time, let them express their anger and listen to it. Or let them express their pain. Or let them express their joy. This goes on the other side too. Let them express their joy, their happiness. pay them that much respect to do that. And you'll get into a good habit of communicating. And I'm going to quickly get into that as well. Here's another key thing. Hurt always precedes anger by actions. Hurt always precedes anger. And now people get hurt. And the hurt stings. And it stays. And for some it's hard to forgive. And I preach this all the time. And this is where communication comes in, because if you discuss the problem openly and accept and listen to each other's situations and reasoning behind it, you can slowly build and get rid of that anger. And you'll and that having to hold it against someone deep inside. You don't have to hold it in. You can deal with it and get rid of it. Because once you solve something and then the brain solves it, it doesn't just shove it away because they don't want to deal with it. And that happens when we communicate directly and deal with it then. And when you do it effectively, we're not shoving it in the back. We're dealing with it. We're moving forward. We're not repressing anything. So that's like, as I said, when two people are arguing, finally one of them, the big battles are going on, boom, 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 back and forth. Finally, one person just says, okay, you're right. You're right. Yet they're just saying that because one just breaks down and says, I can't have it anymore, and they don't want to argue anymore. So they just say, okay, you're right. What did they just do? They repressed their whole thing. They just stuck it back in there because they were wrongfully communicating and not accepting each other's emotions and just simply talking about what the problem is and coming to some agreement when there's something triggered, like, okay, let's step away from this for a little bit so we can talk about this. And this is how it goes on. Yeah, okay, you're right. Because they don't want to deal with it. People don't want to deal with it. And that's part of society today. People don't want to deal with it. Okay, I don't want to deal with that. I'm not going to face that. I don't want to hear her bitch. I don't want to hear him say that. I don't want to hear his bullshit anymore. Blah, 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 blah. Mutual respect in communication, accepting other people's emotions. Because you can never tell them they're not real, because they are real. People, we all have a right to feel our emotions. Whether they're right or wrong as to why we're feeling them, that's a different story. But that's what the communication part comes in to solve. One of the worst things, and I found this about myself, is saying the word, listen to me. Listen to me. No. Listen to me. You don't care. You don't love me. Listen to me. You don't do this. You don't do that. Do you hear everything is negative. You don't do this. You don't do that. You don't do that. Listen, 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 listen. No. No, 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 no. Wrong, wrong, wrong. Very wrong. And once you identify that you're saying these words and you're talking to others like this, and I'm not talking about all the time. This what I'm talking about is this shows up when somebody's feeling an emotion and the other one doesn't want to accept it or deal with it. Or they could have a bad day at work. They could have a bad day at work and come home and they want to sling it on you. As I just said when the man came on, instead of saying, okay, what's wrong? Why are you feeling the way you're doing? Simple. Why are you feeling? What's going on? You're mad at me? Okay, why? Why are you mad? And then discuss it. And you have to come to some kind of mutual agreement, which I'm going to get into. The key to this and to keeping this artery open and to have that sexual intimacy and the passion and the good communication in the relationship, both people, and this is how you can start to fix this, both people must become emotionally naked. In other words, and I love this actually because it makes so much sense. You love somebody in your relationship with them and you're at that point where it's like, I'm not talking a relationship that's, I'm talking you're in it. You want to become emotionally naked. Lay everything out on the table. You want to become bare. You want to sit down with the person and become bare. And if the other person doesn't want to do that and sit down and bear everything, this is what bothers me about this, whatever, or blah, 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 blah. This is the starting point. If the other person doesn't want to do that, then you have a complete breakdown. You're done. You're done. And it may be because they don't love them. Meaning, they may love them, but they're not in love with them. But you want to become emotionally naked. So say you're in a relationship, you're in a marriage, and you see it going downhill. You sit down with your spouse, the other half, and listen, let's just talk about this. Let's talk about all of this. Become naked. But you can't tell the other person they can't feel the way that they're saying when they become emotionally naked to you. You need to listen to them. And if you really care about them, really, really care about them and love them, you listen to them. Doesn't mean you have to agree, but you'll listen to them. And if there is a breakdown that two people can't live together, or they're not in love that way, then you need to end it. Because otherwise you're going to continue in the complete madness of your emotions being repressed. And every time you repress an emotion, and every time you do that, you sink lower and lower within your soul, within yourself. And that's where depression comes in. And that's another part of this is you'll make yourself sick and you'll die. People don't understand that. A lot of people don't understand that all these emotions and all these feelings that we suppress and that are not dealt with, and matters that are not dealt with, we stick them in here. And that's what creates stress. And this could be at your workplace too. It's not to be in a relationship. And this is where stress comes in. And when you're stressed, stress creates illness in the body, and then you die. Truth. The more you repress things, the more you live in a world of I don't want to face this, I don't want to face this, I don't want to deal with this, I don't want to do that. You're killing yourself. And you'd be killing your children or anybody else around you at the same time because of that stress. It'll kill you. Stress almost killed me. The ultimate payoff is to become, or should say maintain, emotional. I'm going to call it emotional passion, intimacy, emotional intimacy. Accepting and listening to the other's feelings. And then the sexual intimacy will continue and grow. And I don't mean makeup sex. That's actually a bad thing to do. People get into bad cycles. Let's have this huge fight, boom, great makeup sex, what they think is great makeup sex, boom, stay calm for a little bit and start it all over again. Boom, 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 boom. There's actually studies on that about dopamine in the brain where it raises itself up from arguing. And that's part of a problem in our society as well. This issue of mental illness and depression and dopamine levels and things, which cause problems. I mean, people who have depression or alcoholism, etc. It's been shown, and I have it in studies. They go in these cycles of rages, and it's not a healthy emotional environment. Everything's repressed usually. Now, so I can close this up. Let's discuss resolving the conflict. So now you're in a you want to resolve the conflict that you're having after you've had these emotional. And I'm going to go through them. I mean, when most people talk about conflict, we have a negative look at it, like yikes, conflict, fighting, arguing. That's negative. That's bad. That's negative. That's bad. Debating, it doesn't matter. And as I said, when a couple doesn't have any of those, there's something wrong. There's something seriously wrong. When everything is just, we have a perfect life. Everything's perfect. We don't fight. We don't fight. Everything's great. We just go along in our happy way. No. Impossible. We're not clones. Everybody has emotions. And if one party's not showing those emotions, or both, there's something wrong. Because until we're cloned and robots, you can't stop emotions. You can't. And thus, if you're repressing them and not discussing them and showing them, that's anger, fighting, happiness, joy, whatever. But mainly it's having disagreements. Disagreements are healthy. I've triple checked that. People tell me, arguing's bad for a relationship. No, it's not. How you argue and how you have a disagreement could be the bad part. In other words, like I said, if somebody expresses themselves and you shut them down and they become and then you yell and then you scream, that's bad. But if someone's angry and they tell you they're angry and they show it in a constructive way and then you discuss it, it's fine, it's normal, it's good. If you don't have any conflict, then you have a problem. A serious problem. We're all unique people. We're all different in our own ways. And thus our emotions are going to vary. But that's the beauty of life. So now we have the resolution. And as I went already into how to the different types. I mean, we have the one that does the couples that don't talk about anything and they repress all their feelings, and then and then you have the one that, World War III. They both show them as both yelling, screaming. World War III. It's a night, boom, and then there's the third conflict. And that can be resolved. The results and how to resolve them is a combination of those two. Everything's okay, and then boom, it goes back down, because they don't want to lose one another, and then it goes back down, and then boom, it goes back up again and does the same thing. Vicious cycle. Very, very bad. They smooth. And then pow, smooth, and then pow. It doesn't work. Bottom line to resolving this conflict is to communicate and be understanding and to think before you speak to the other one and be open to listen to the other one. And if you don't care enough to listen, then you shouldn't be there. It's really that simple. But you want to listen and you want to open. You want to accept their emotions when they tell them to you. Validate them is the key. You want to validate them. You want to let them know, okay, that they're feeling this way. And then you want to say why are you feeling that way. And lay the cards, become naked, tell them. Yeah. Okay, I feel this way because you did this, or this, or you didn't do this, and this. Bottom line is no real intimacy, no real emotional intimacy builds walls, builds barriers, builds failed relationships and marriages. But there's another key part of this. That if from the beginning, a lot of people get married young, I was one of them, or you get married too soon, or you end up in a relationship too soon, you don't really know the person, then you find out the person, and you're too young, like I said, like I got married too young too. And that's not to say young marriages don't work, because they do, or young relationships don't work, because they do. I'm saying most of the time, getting married young is not a good thing. Because you've trapped yourself off from even growing up. before you get married and locked into a situation with someone that you're going to be spending, you should be spending the rest of your life with. When in fact, it's not even the right person because you weren't even able to see the world. And people understand what I mean by that. To grow, or even to mature or grow. Just this person was in your life, and then boom. And then you begin to accept them for what they were, and accept your life, and the communication barriers broke down, the honeymoon's over, and here we go. No intimacy, walls, barriers. It's over, it's finished. And then, when you have that, some little things like you discuss money, there's a problem with money, or this, they're triggers. Or you decide, oh, we're going to go to Disneyland here, and let's not go here, let's stay there, and then boom, there's an argument or disagreement about that. And with one party just doesn't even want to deal with it. Ever. They're just like, okay, walk around with my head in the sand, this is okay, this is good, I'll do my little thing and go like this. Really? Who wants to live like that? Who wants to live not expressing their emotions and their feelings, or being heard and being validated, and then creating and maintaining that great intimacy, both mentally, physically, sexually? I don't care what anyone says, we all need intimacy. We all need love, and we all need passion. And if you say you don't need those things, then there's something you're repressing in your own emotions. So to resolve it, you want to, I looked at business structure. And in business, when there's a disagreement, you have arbitration, you have mediation, you have all different types of things like that to resolve it. Like, you mediate it, you do it. It's like a contract. Okay, I agree that we're going to mediate this. If there's a problem, and you sign on the dotted line. Okay, however it comes out, the resolution comes out, but you agreed to mediate it. You've agreed to both, you have to have structure. So that in a corporate setting, you have structure. You have a balance there. In other words, 50-50. You sign a contract, this is what we're going to do, and I'm showing you how this is, and I've been learning this, and I'm now pushing it because it works. And using the business structure as the example of it, because you agree 50-50. So if you go into a relationship and you agree that you're going to listen to the other person, you're not going to not validate their emotions, and you're going to have this agreement. And if there is a disagreement, that you're going to agree to come down to the table, become naked, and throw it out there and discuss it. And whatever the outcome it is. Listen, in life people get hurt because we agree to disagree. Someone, possibly can end up hurt or have to walk away because the communication's not there and the intimacy's not there. But to keep a healthy relationship, that you have the love and the passion. If you have that love and that passion there, that's what you want. And you should be, at time, you're going to argue. If you don't argue, it's not real. It's not real. You can talk to any doctors, you can talk to, look it up yourself. I don't preach BS. I don't preach bullshit. I'm going to say it on the show. I don't preach bullshit. I do my homework. And I use my own life and my own faults and my own examples to prove it. And you don't have to agree with me, but in this is pretty deep stuff here, our emotions and what we do with them. And how explosive it can be. And our society is a problem because of our emotions and how we don't control our emotions and our words. Words are powerful. You can never take them back. You can never take them back. But you can say you're sorry. And you can validate to that person that the words that you did say were not meant and were taken wrongfully, were expressed wrongfully because your emotions were not being validated. It's the key. When someone else wants to share their emotions and feelings with you, listen to them. And they should listen back. Doesn't mean you have to agree with them. If you listen to them and then you discuss them, and you come to some mutual agreement, like as I was saying, in corporations, you have mediation. You mediate yourselves. You mediate yourselves. You talk. You put it out there. But the key is to validate the emotion. Not say, you shouldn't feel that way, you shouldn't feel that way. I don't know how you could feel that way. It's crazy. No. World War III, bad. Or no World War III and it's repressed and nobody wants to talk about it. So everything's 50-50 and we're equal. And you got to be in a relationship with 50-50. If there's no 50-50 and there's no real, there's love but there's no passion and intimacy, and thus the emotions, the real emotions. These emotions get shown onto your children, they get shown onto your friends, your relatives, it doesn't matter, the family. Emotions are real. Emotions are facts. And we should be accepted when we express them properly. No yelling. You don't have to express anything without yelling. There's no reason to yell. And if you're in the habit of yelling, you need to get yourself out of it simply because it's a bad way to express emotion. You're angry. That's like throwing the remote or punching the wall and yelling. It's a bad way to express an emotion. And you can fix it. Once you understand it, you can fix it. It's simple. Believe it or not, everybody, this is too hard, I can't do it. It's simple. It's very simple. And I'm happy. I'm happy. I worked on this and I'm working on it forever now, but I'm going to get it to the point where I can communicate great like I do in business. Because words are very powerful. And I've had many bad words said to me. And they hurt. And they stayed until I forgave. Forgiveness is key. Don't hold a grudge of the emotion because that's just a repressed emotion. Do you understand what that is? Lack of forgiveness because it hasn't been thrown out and validated. If you have a problem with somebody or somebody did something to you or said something to you and you're still with them, become naked and throw it out there. Talk to them about it. Get rid of it. Clean it up. That's what that means. Clean it up. And if they don't want to validate it for you, or they want to take the time out to talk to you about it and really be sincere about it, toss them. Serious. It's a dead end street. It's a dead end street if somebody does not want to hear you out or to validate your emotions and say that they don't exist or that you're wrong for feeling that way. That is the worst. We're all allowed to feel what we feel. Communication is the key to the world, actually. Wars get started and stopped by communication. Love, passion, stands the test of time because of communication. Intimacy. Emotional intimacy. Good night. God bless.